So everything in One Punch Man has just changed. Well, not everything, but everything in the current arc that we have been following for the last 7 chapters. Because One and Murata have decided to change everything about them, meaning the last 7 chapters are just gone now and they are going to be changed, or retcon. So we're going all the way back to November, like 5 months ago, to chapter 195. Like the current chapter that we were just on was 202, meaning that Sonic and Flashy Flash meeting up, fighting each other, fighting the Heavenly Ninja Party, and then running into Empty Void, them fighting against him trying to get them to come over to God's side, and then Blast showing up and punching Empty Void. That's all gone now. Doesn't mean that it's gone forever. Probably gonna come back in another way, I suppose. And this isn't the first time that this has happened with One Punch Man. One and Murata have altered large portions of the story on the fly multiple times, especially in the last 5 years, so it's okay. Especially with One Punch Man, because it's not released in like weekly Shonen Jump magazines the way that like the other big series that we follow on the channel are. It's released on the Tonari website, and nothing is really finalized until it is ultimately released in the volume. And One Punch Man volumes come out much later than the typical other series volume. But anyway, like I said, we're going back to chapter 195, meaning the last thing that we left off with canonically at this point would be 194, where we saw Flashy Flash meet up with Saitama to challenge him to a training match. The training match, of course, ended in Flashy Flash almost taking a freaking death punch to the face, only to be saved by Genos informing them that there are some internet surfer demon level monsters nearby that they can help out with. When they go to these monsters, coincidentally Sonic is also there. This is also the time where Sonic sees Flashy Flash. This is presumably the first time that they had seen each other since they trained together back in the Ninja Village when they were kids. Also at this point, another coincidence, Hellfire and Gale show up again, meeting up with Sonic, saying that they're going to give him another chance to join up with them to help in Flash's execution. At this point, we're also getting another flashback to when Sonic and Flashy Flash were in the Ninja Village together, and them witnessing the God Cube in the Ninja Village as well. So that hasn't changed. That's still going to be a thing for sure. It's kind of integral to the story. But everyone takes care of the monsters, of course. Hellfire and Gale are able to run away after almost getting killed by Flashy Flash, and Sonic is knocked into the ground by Saitama. Then afterwards, Saitama meets up with King and asks him to help him find Minako, to which they quickly do, which Saitama says it only took about 3 panels. Then they ask Minako if she knows anything about God, to which of course she's a little dismissive about. Then Saitama, Flashy Flash, and Minako go to the Hero Association to ask Sitch if they can speak with Blast directly, and to our surprise, Blast was already there. And that's where that chapter ended off, and coming into 195 here, it's essentially kind of staying the same in the beginning. We're seeing Sonic, icing his head after taking that hit from Saitama, with Hellfire and Gale meeting up with him yet again. But this time, they're essentially just going to take out Sonic because I guess they don't care anymore after the last encounter, to which the Heavenly Ninja Party shows up and then knock them both out. Once again, they seemingly pseudo-kill Hellfire and Gale here with a crack noise, insinuating that they are snapping their necks, but in the original chapters that are being retconned now, it turns out that they weren't killed, so I wouldn't be surprised if that changed. It just seems like a waste to kill them at this point. But also, like before, they go on to explain that Empty Void, whose name we technically don't know at this point yet, or he just goes by that man, has awakened. He was in a coma after fighting Blast 15 years ago in a recovery capsule. Now they're going to team up with him and try to take over the world. And they want Sonic to be a part of this plan so that they can lure Flashy Flash out to a location. So yeah, that's all kind of staying the same. But real quick guys, the Patreon Q&A is finally back. If you ever had a question that you wanted to ask me and also have it featured in a video that will be on the channel weekly, well, here's your chance. You can sign up by going to the link in the description. It'll give you instant access to the Q&A thread. And also, I really appreciate the support, guys. Thank you so much. But now we're getting into the stuff that has really changed, and that's when Saitama, Flashy Flash, and Minako are meeting up with Blast at the Hero Association. Now, originally, when they start talking to Blast in this sequence, Blast reveals he's been working on experimentation with the separation of monster cells, like trying to undo human monstrification through experiments at the Hero Association. And that's all that he was really concerned about, and we actually saw them like zapping some of the monster humans from the martial arts tournament, and it seems like that is still going to be the same, because you could see on the left of Blast that they are still in like the lab being experimented on, but none of that stuff is being touched on anymore. it's now changing to Saitama talking to Blast, thanking him for getting them out of the underground of the Monster Association. And Blast was like, you know, no need to thank me. Your abnormal strength caught my eye at that time too. So this makes more sense because Blast like never talked to Saitama about his fight with Garo, which was kind of important, and they kind of just didn't acknowledge it before, but now it seriously is being acknowledged because Sitch suddenly talking to Saitama is like, hey Baldy, Blast is verified. It seems you were the one who defeated Monster Garo. And Saitama's like, you know, I don't really remember any of that. And Sitch is like, you need to retrace your memory. It's urgent. And he's like, well, I'm not going to remember if you're yelling at me. I can't remember what I can't remember. And he's like, well, that stuff's been resolved anyway, so I don't know why you're angry. And Sitch is like, resolved? There's no way. And of course, Saitama doesn't remember the fight with Garo because when he was fighting Garo had killed everyone that was around in that vicinity with his cosmic radiation, and it eventually led to Garo reversing time with his understanding of cosmic energy that God gave him, and he also taught this to Saitama. So when Saitama went back to the previous timeline where everyone didn't die yet, since that was the future Saitama, his previous self merged with him and they combined into one solid entity that is now in the previous timeline, which is now the current timeline. And that like wiped Saitama's memories of the future. And Blast is actually remembering this moment. Well, actually right before all of that had happened, he's going back to the moment of when Garo launched off that gamma ray burst at Saitama, because that's essentially the last thing that would have happened before time was reverted, because future Saitama comes right after that moment and then punches Garo and defeats him. But Blast is like, you know, without a doubt, the Earth was in danger at that point. Like, I saw a freaking gamma ray burst fire off. That thing could have easily destroyed Earth if it was aimed at it. And then Sitch is like, you know, what on earth is Cape's Baldy? You know, like, if he was able to defeat that, then what the heck is he? And Blast is like, I don't know. I couldn't see the bottom at all, but we need to find out. But I didn't sense any malice from him, so it shouldn't be any problems leaving him at large. And then Sitch is like, yeah, even if we did try to restrain him, Demon Cyborg won't stay silent, you know, Genos. And it's like, yeah, that's the problem here. Restraining Saitama isn't the issue, it's Genos. Still, you know, we've got a little delusion in these characters, which is a hallmark of the series. And then the chapter ends with Sitch asking Blast, like, hey, do you think this crisis has been averted since, you know, Garo was defeated? And Blast's like, no. Rather, the real deal has just begun, because in truth, a greater threat than Garo is imminent. Now, apparently the original translation for this is Garo Ijo, or above Garo. I don't want to say that that's a new disaster level. You know, we already have Ryu Ijo, you know, above Dragon. I don't know if Garo Ijo or above Garo is like a new thing, but a greater threat than Garo is imminent, which is something that we've been talking about for a while. There's no way that the series was just going to eclipse at that point with Cosmic Fear Garo being the strongest. In theory, God could keep making people like that. Now, granted, they're not all as gifted as Garo, but there are some people who are inherently just stronger than Garo. So, you know, if you used Cosmic Fear powers on them, they would, in theory, become stronger. Maybe not have as much knowledge and talent as him, but they would be, on paper, stronger. Like, for example, Boros, maybe. But I love that they're changing this and actually talking about that fight now, because it was kind of odd that they didn't address it before. And I also like that Blast is bringing up that, like, yeah, you know, I didn't sense any malice from Saitama, so it shouldn't be a problem leaving him at large. This could play into a future storyline where Blast deems Saitama like a threat to humanity because he is too strong. And this goes back to one of the earliest Blast theories that I talked about on this channel, like over 5 years ago, maybe. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Let me know what you think about the retcons in the comments, and if you liked it, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.